Welcome to this explainer. You know, the foundational language of the internet, HTML, can honestly feel like this massive disconnected glossary of just random letters and brackets. But today, we're not just reading a dictionary. We're actually using a house-building blueprint to see exactly how these tags logically fit together. By the time we wrap up, you're going to understand how to build a digital house literally from the ground up.
But before we start pouring the digital concrete, let's ground ourselves real quick. What exactly are we looking at when we talk about HTML? Well, the secret is all in the HTML tag. This is that hidden code, neatly wrapped in those sharp little angle brackets, that acts as an invisible instruction manual for your web browser. You can think of these tags as the absolute fundamental building blocks of the web, and they almost always come in pairs. You've got an opening tag to start an instruction, and then a closing tag, usually with a / to end it. Without these brackets telling the browser, hey, this is a title, or this is a paragraph, or this is an image, the internet would just be a massive, unreadable wall of text. No way we want that.
To make sense of it all, our blueprint follows 5 logical steps. We'll cover the blueprint of the web, scaffolding the page layout, formatting text and content, embedding links in media, and finally, forms and user interaction. Let's dive in.
All right, kicking things off with section 1, the blueprint of the web.
Now pay attention to the strict hierarchy here. These foundational tags are absolutely mandatory for any web page to even exist, and they have to be nested inside each other in this exact order. Step 1 is the HTML tag. This is basically your property line. It tells the browser, hey, everything inside these brackets is my website. Next up, we've got the head tag. Think of this as the hidden electrical wiring and plumbing inside the walls. The user never actually sees what's in the head tag. It just contains behind-the-scenes metadata, the title for your browser tab, stuff like that. And finally, step 3, we have the body tag. This is the house itself. Everything we actually look at, read, or click on when visiting a website lives completely inside the body tag. Seriously, if it's not in the body, it's not on the screen. Moving right along to section 2, scaffolding the page layout. So, the property lines are drawn and the foundation is poured, but how do we map out the specific rooms of our digital house? We do this using what we call semantic layout tags. For a really long time, web developers just threw everything into generic, meaningless boxes. But today, HTML gives us these beautiful, descriptive tags that add specific meaning to different areas of our layout. For example, the header tag acts as the roof and signage. It's usually where you'll find the logo and main navigation menu. Once we're past the signage, we step into the main tag, which is exactly what it sounds like, the primary living space containing the core content. Inside that, we can use the section tag to carve out individual rooms or distinct topics. And finally, at the very bottom, we have the footer tag. That's the basement foundation where we stash copyright info, legal links, and secondary navigation. This structure doesn't just keep the code clean, it tells search engines exactly how our digital house is organized. Now imagine a massive, heavy shipping container. When a div tag, which is a block-level element, is placed on a page, it takes up the entire full width available. It forces whatever comes next to drop down to a brand new line, stacking vertically. On the other hand, the span tag is an inline element. It's polite. It only takes up exactly as much space as it needs, sitting directly in line perfectly alongside your other text. So we use divs to stack the major sections of a layout, and we use spans to, say, quietly style a single word in the middle of a sentence without breaking the flow.
Okay, section 3, formatting text and content.
The structural scaffolding is officially up, so let's get to the interior design and populate our house with some actual content. First up, headings. Ranging from H1 all the way down to H6, these tags establish the page's hierarchy. The H1 is the main title, the biggest, boldest headline you've got. The H2s and H3s act as subheadings to break everything into nice, scannable chunks. Next, for standard body text, your sentences are just wrapped in a simple P tag, which stands for paragraph. And when you need to add a little flair or emphasis, we turn to formatting tags. We use B for bold text, I for italics, or strong to signal to the browser that a specific word carries heavy semantic importance. It's really just like formatting a regular text document, but you're using brackets instead of clicking buttons on a toolbar.
Next up is section 4, embedding links and media. So our digital house is built and furnished with text, but you know what? It needs some windows. When we look at the literal syntax for an image tag, we see exactly how visual media gets pulled in. Now notice something totally unique about this tag. There's no closing bracket with a slash. It's what we call a self-closing tag. But the tag alone isn't quite enough to get the job done. It needs instructions, which we call attributes, tucked right inside that opening bracket. Let's break down these mandatory attributes because they are honestly the secret sauce of the image tag. First is the SRC, or source attribute. This is just the file path or URL that points the browser to where the picture actually lives on a server somewhere. It basically says, go fetch the image from right here. The second attribute, the alt text, is incredibly vital. Alt stands for alternative text, and if the image magically fails to load, this text appears instead. But more importantly, this is absolutely crucial for web accessibility. Screen readers used by visually impaired individuals will read this alt text out loud, describing the image to the user. So rule of thumb, never ever skip the alt text. And speaking of pathways, let's talk about the tag that literally puts the web in the World Wide Web, the A tag, also known as the anchor tag. This single tiny line of code is responsible for every hyperlink you have ever clicked. Just like the image tag needs a source, the anchor tag uses the href attribute, which stands for hypertext reference, to specify the exact destination URL. By wrapping these anchor tags around our text, our isolated little digital house is instantly connected to billions of other pages around the globe.
Up until now, everything we've built is pretty static, right? It's a one-way street. The browser displays the blueprint, the text, and the images, and the user just sits there and consumes it. But how does the web talk back?
That brings us to our final stop, Section 5, Forms and User Interaction. These tags right here are the doorbells, the levers, and the mailboxes of our digital house. To actually enable two-way communication, we use a specific set of interaction tags, and it all starts with the form tag. This acts as the main container, grouping all the user data together. Inside that form, we place our input tags, and the input tag, it is a total chameleon. Depending on the attributes you give it, an input can transform into a text box for your name, a secure hidden field for a password, a checkbox, or even a sliding scale. It's how all the information is collected. And finally, nothing actually happens until the user clicks the button tag. The button is the trigger. Once clicked, it gathers up all those inputs collected inside the form and securely ships that data off to the server.
Well, we did it. We've poured the foundation, built out the layout, decorated with text, opened some windows with media, and added interactive doorbells. We now have the complete blueprint to how the internet is constructed. Seriously, the next time you're browsing your favorite website, just right-click anywhere on the page and select Inspect Element. A panel is going to slide open, revealing this hidden matrix of HTML tags operating behind the scenes, exactly like the ones we just covered. You'll literally see the divs, the spans, the image tags, and the headers. It completely changes the way you look at the internet. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. But before you go, I want you to ask yourself, if this HTML is just the static blueprint, what kind of code acts as the actual construction crew bringing it to life with colors and animations? We'll leave that for next time.